Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. First things first, I have to say a massive thank you to you guys for the response I received to my Rolex Flex video. Clearly the topics I discussed were topics that resonated with you guys. That means the topic was well worth discussing and debating. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you my opinion, which I strongly back, but my opinions are absolutely there to be debated. And I'm glad that my videos have been able to elicit that response from you. However, sadly, there were one and two comments that made me fall slightly short of the standards that I like to keep on my channel. And for those that leave those sorts of comments,
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble.
No, I'm just messing about, guys. But I would say this: you guys can expect from me the highest levels of respect and decency when you leave your comments or interact with me in any way. So when you send your comments in, if you could just keep that spirit in mind. And for those that don't have anything nice to say, you love Twitter. Before we move on to the main topic of the video, I'm going to do my customary wristwatch check, and today I'm wearing my Rolex around the day. Now if you go back to my Rolex Flex video, you remember that I spoke about Rolex now being synonymous with a high-end brand, hence the hype that you see in the watches today. And this hype, along with a reduced quantity of sports watch models being made by Rolex, has resulted in the price of the Rolex sports watch models going astronomically high. But it's got me thinking, is there something else going on? Are we now seeing some watch models, not just Rolex, being used as a store of wealth? I was quite intrigued by this prospect, so I did some research on my own just to see if there was some truth to this statement. Before I continue, I'm going to put out a disclaimer and tell you that nothing I'm about to say constitutes financial advice. This is simply my observations of what I think is going on in the watch market. To do this, I did have to set some controls. So to that end, all monetary comparisons and valuations are between a time period of January 2019 and October 2022. Secondly, all the watches assessed, according to Cronometre, have a year of production of between 2010 and 2019. And B, all watches were in very good condition and have a full set of box and papers. The first thing I did was compare the value of the pound versus the US dollar in the time period between January 2019 and October 2022. On the 4th of January 2019, £1 was worth $1.27. Fast forward to 2022 and the 3rd of October 2022, one British pound is now worth $1.13 rounded up. Or in other words, the British pound has lost 11% of its value compared to the US dollar since January 2019. If you want to put this in another way, in January 2019, £100,000 would have been worth $127,000. Now, that same £100,000 is only worth $113,000. That's a reduction of $14,000. So you may ask, where do high-end watches come into this conversation? Well, I'm now going to look at a number of high-end watches and using their secondary sales value as per Cronometre, I'm going to compare their value in 2019 versus what it is now in October 2022. I'll then look at the percentage increase and decrease and try to see if this tells a story and perhaps maybe answer my question as to whether watches are being used as a store of value. The first watch I'm going to look at is the Breitling 01 limited edition, reference AB0120. As at January 2019, Cronometre has its value at around £4,217. At October 2022, Cronometre has its value at being around $4,353. This means the value of this watch has increased by roughly 3% in that time period. The second watch is the Hublot Big Bang, reference 1170GR. As at January 2019, Cronometre has its value at being around £8,276. At October 22, this has increased to £8,656, which means over the time period between January 19 and October 22, the value of this watch has increased by 5%. The third watch I'll be looking at is the Rolex Sky Dweller, reference 326934, and this is with the white face. At January 2019, Cronometre has its value at being around 12,925. However, at October 22, Cronometre has its value at being around 19,865. This is an amazing increase of 54% during this time period. The fourth watch is the G&T Master 2 Batman, reference 116710 BLNR. As at January 2019, Cronometre has the value at 9,131. However, at October 22, this has increased to 15,376. That's an increase of 68% during this time period. The fifth watch I'm going to look at is the Rolex Submariner Date, reference number 116610LN. As per Cronometre, in January 19, this watch was worth around £6,887 on the after sales market. However, in October 2022, this has now increased to £11,930. This represents a 73% increase in value during the time period between January 2019 and October 22. It's simply amazing. The sixth watch is one of the daddies of the collection, and this is the Rolex Submariner Hulk, reference 116610LV. In January 2019, Cronometre has its value at being around £9,375. However, in October 22, that's increased to £20,833. This is an increase in value in that time period of around 122%, which is insane. The final watch I'll consider is the Rolex Daytona Platinum, reference 116506. As at January 2019, Cronometre has its value down at being at around 47,363. However, at October 2022, the value is now £115,108. This is an increase in value of 143% in that time frame. It's scary how much value this watch has accrued in that time, and it's kind of represented in the graph here where you can see its sum of value in 2022 makes all other watches in this selection, it just completely dwarfs the graph, and just goes to show you how much that watch has increased over that period of time. Now, if I put this in another way, I've got my protection versus weak pound graph here. At the bottom of the scale, we have the Breitling 01. And although this increased by 3% in the time period between January 2019 and October 2022, if you factor in the reduction of value of the British pound at 11% compared to the dollar in this time period, overall you'll be down 8%. Moving on to the Hublot Big Bang. Although this increased in value by 5% between January 19 and October 2022, because of the reduction in value of the pound, overall you'll be down by 6% if you purchase one of these watches in that time period. Moving on to the Rolex Sky Dweller, between January 2019 and October 2022, this timepiece achieved a fantastic 54% increase in value. Even if you take into account the reduction of value of the British pound, you're still up by 43%. And this is a trend we're going to see to exceptional levels on all of the Rolex sports models coming up. The G&T Master 2 Batman has achieved a 57% increase in value even after taking into account 11% reduction in the pound versus the dollar. The Rolex Submariner Date has achieved a 62% increase. And even more insanely, the Rolex Submariner Hulk has achieved a 122% increase in value versus 2019. And even after taking into account the reduced value of the pound in 2022, you're still up by 111%. This pattern repeats itself to a level I have no words for when we look at the Rolex Daytona Platinum. Between January 2019 and October 2022, this watch increased in value by 143%, And even after taking into account the reduced value of the pound, you're better off by 132%, which is just sensational. To really hit home this point, in the same time period of January 2019 to October 22, gold, which is an actual precious metal, has only increased by 46% in value compared to what it was in 2019. In other words, 4 of the Rolex sports watch models have performed even better than gold. And that's going from the Batman, the Submariner, the Hulk, and the Rolex Daytona Platinum. This means there are some watch models that have been performing better than gold as a store of wealth. Gold being an actual precious metal, which is crazy because although some watches are of limited edition or are discontinued, they're not what you call a scarce resource. In conclusion, after reviewing the data, can I say that some timepieces are being used as a store of wealth? Well, after reviewing the data, I'd have to say there's probably some truth to this. And it looks as if some Rolex models in particular are the preferred timepieces for this sort of store of wealth exercise that we're seeing among the super rich, or could potentially be happening among the super rich. And although my data mostly focused on Rolex watches, sadly Chrono24 didn't have the same value chart for some other brands that I wanted to look at as part of this exercise. But there are some other watches that I think this conclusion can be applied to. For example, a few years back, some of you may remember that I was on the Watch Dealer's Apprentice. At the time, I was able to find on Chrono24 an FP Journe Cronometre Bleu, and if my memory serves me right, in pretty good condition too, for around £40,000. If you go back to the video, you'll see the watch that I'm referring to. If you now look on Chrono24 for FP Journe Cronometre Bleu, you will be shocked at the price you will see these watches are going for now. It's to be expected that some of you may disagree with my assertions in this video today, but I have to say there must be some truth to it, because I was there and I witnessed firsthand the hysteria around the launch of the Moon Swatch, which was a £200 watch, where perhaps some thought they could make a few £1,000s from getting one of these watches early and selling it on the black market. And as for me, do I think this is a good thing? I don't think it is. I think in line with the sentiments in my Rolex Flex video, and this niche that we're in, it's a brilliant place to be. But I think now with the realization that you can make a great deal of money from being involved with watches and horology has meant that it's kind of taken some of the joy out of watch collecting, in my view. Because for me, watch collecting wasn't about the money. It was about the history of the brands, the movements, complications, the adventures, going to the moon, dive into insane depths, seeing special watches in special films. Watch collecting for me was a joy. It was about learning, it was about the experience. I hope some of the leading brands recognize this and start thinking about ways they can make horology available to all. That's it for me, and if you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.